Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I would like to go through the latest monthly report for the Persistent Universe. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, and if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So, kicking off with the animation team, they focused on improving visual results for reloads and takedowns, plus they worked on basic idles for weapons and knives, which says they are planning to release in Alpha 3.20. They are also currently improving the player-prone animations and adding an increasing number of player interactions to improve immersion in specific environments. And it will be very nice to start seeing more refined character animations come to the Persistent Universe. They are currently very janky and in need of a lot of polish. And finally, on the facial side, they continued to support new incoming lines for Persistent Universe pilots and combatants. Now, for the character art team, they continued to work on outfits for both the Headhunters and Dusters gang. For the audio team, they progressed with tasks for Pyro, including implementing imperative sounds. Improvements were made to the flight experience as well, including updating vibration tech and impacts, while sound effects were also designed and implemented for upcoming spaceship releases. And soon we will be getting an update from the audio team on either Inside Star Citizen or Star Citizen Live, taking a closer look at the new Claudius system, which is a brand new audio system that should bring audio propagation and a lot more. Now, for the character and weapon features team, they experimented with skill progression, which involves players performing specific in-game actions to make them better at similar activities. For example, building up strength will allow players to carry heavier items with fewer penalties, while performing takedowns will open up access to quicker and quieter action sets. And I really hope that this is done well and does not infringe on the actual real-world player skills, which is one of the biggest selling points of Star Citizen for me. It is a fine line, of course, but I do feel it can be done well so that it just complements players' individuality and feels natural. Now, for player traversal, the team began implementing a sliding mechanic, and if a player tries to crouch while sprinting, they will perform a short slide before entering the crouched stance. The speed of the slide, it says, is determined by the starting speed of the player, and the distance of the slide may depend on factors such as the roughness or angle of the terrain, with the player automatically stopping when they reach an obstacle. So this is great to hear. I am much more confident that this won't feel like an arcadey Call of Duty style slide, and more of a realistic slide based on certain variables that make sense. So for the gameplay features team, they continued working on vehicle tractor beams, which will also bring improvements to the existing tractor beams. June also included the first iterative test for core balancing and the UI, so very excited to see a big balance pass coming along for pretty much everything. The Persistent Universe has been in dire need for one, and should bring a lot more consistency to all items, weapons, ships and so forth in the game. The team progressed with the resource network, which included features like engineering gameplay and life support. This is a big system that will certainly take a bit of time to complete, but it will be well worth the wait. They also worked on several prototypes for Salvage's munching gameplay, and are currently discussing the best fitting technical solution with all the dependable teams. This we saw recently on Inside Star Citizen will certainly be a fun mechanic when it comes along, finally chewing up ships, which will also benefit the servers as well, getting them all removed. And then finally, for the gameplay features team, they made improvements to mining for Alpha 3.20 based on community feedback, including updates to stability and predictability when mining. And these changes have just been rolled out to the latest Evocati patch, which I have covered in a separate video that I will link below. Some nice new additions there to just get mining more to where they want it. Now, moving on to the mission features team, the embedded QA testers supported work on the ship trespass feature by giving it rigorous destructive testing. As we know, this was originally intended for release in 3.20, but was kind of pushed back a little bit just to spend more time ironing out edge cases. The Retrieve Consignment mission passed its final review and is currently being polished and balanced, and alongside this, the current underground facilities were replaced with the Rastar tool to fix a variety of issues and make iterating on them easier. Now, this we saw on Inside Star Citizen. They have just gone into the latest 3.20 build. Much more beneficial to have all of these updated to the latest tech that is so much more robust, quicker to work with, so it is a big win getting them all rebuilt, but hopefully we can see some new variations to the interiors one day soon as well. Now, progress was made on the new global event being Blockade Runner, with a working prototype shown to game directors who approved its move into development, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this. Considering it was what they were originally wanting for the Ninetales lockdown, I reckon we could be seeing some interesting combination of both ship and FPS combat, plus support for other aspects like getting resources through the blockade, and even potentially big reputation updates allowing players to properly side with the Ninetales. So the initial planning for the cargo missions was completed, with all dependencies identified, and the team are now looking deeper into the reputation system to improve the wider delivery and hauling mission gameplay loops. And I really can't wait to see cargo hauling expanded to that next level. This career path holds so much potential and scale, and I've been dreaming about being a proper hauler in the verse since pretty much day one, especially when we saw the original Freelancer advert. Can't wait to see this gameplay loop and see what it offers, and we are getting much closer to that. The steal and recover cargo missions were prototyped and shown to the directors and are making good progress. These will see players either recovering cargo from disabled ships or disabling and boarding ships before securing their cargo that way. Another interesting concept for a mission, and hopefully each premise is available for both lawful and illegal missions. And then finally, code work began for Reputation. Progression within Reputation scopes will give players discounts on various purchases, like items, refueling and repair. Mission features also picked up the reputation-based hostility system as well, which will see NPC orgs more willing to attack those who have a negative rep with them, or provide benefits to those with a positive standing. So a very important system that will have huge implications in-game when introduced, and just travelling around from location to location, all dependable on who you've pissed off or helped out. Now, for the graphics, visual effects programming and Planet Tech team, several new features were added to the global illumination system last month, including the initial implementation of temporal smoothing for screen space probes, which will produce more stable results at a lower cost. G-buffer support was also added to environmental probes to provide a cheap scene representation for secondary light bounces, and in addition, new debug modes were added alongside a new mechanism to gather lights for the GI system. A basic implementation of temporal super resolution was completed, which will continue to receive fixes and improvements as it's integrated into the graphics engine. AMD's memory allocation API was integrated into the Vulkan backend, improving the system's stability, streaming speeds, and buffer reload times. Great for anyone using AMD out there. A reduction in streaming and rendering dependencies has improved performance, with these features added alongside ongoing bug fixes to visual regression tests with a focus on the render-to-texture system. And as part of the UI refinements and unifications, the silhouette and highlight feature is currently being improved with a softer and brighter outer glow. Also, the minimap received a ping effect, which will blink around objectives for improved game navigation. Lots of work going on for the various map types, and I would be very surprised if we didn't see all the maps at CitizenCon this year. The feature team is working on getting the new unified water shader into game, adding details like puddles that splash on impact, and fixing collision detection issues on larger water volumes. A new system to manage water simulations is in progress, which will activate regions of water upon collision, and then deactivate them when they have settled. Now, I believe this is all work towards getting water to react realistically when objects like ships crash into it, so creating a proper wake upon impact, and then calming again around the ship once it has settled into place. A new hash map system for allocating water buffer regions and large surface area friendly water volumes is actively being worked on, so that the new unified water buffer system can be enabled by default. The World Builder system saw a variety of improvements last month, including a major refactor to the high-level logic that runs background jobs, which should significantly reduce latency, avoid stalls, and improve the code. If they can figure that out, that will be very good, because any latency and stalling is definitely not good in the PU. In addition to this, Planet Ocean patches no longer render in duplicates, and the Planet streaming system was fixed for Gen 12. And then finally, for the visual effects programming team, they fixed issues impacting damage maps, with attached objects now correctly updating their damage maps, and an issue causing unexpected data to appear in snapshots is being investigated. Whew, quite a lot of work there. Now for the engine team, the core engine team progressed with the development of StarBuild, which is the in-house code build system. This will replace the WAF or WAF system, and last month they fixed issues and implemented improvements based on feedback from wider development use. For MemReplay 2.0, the team introduced virtual memory areas as a concept to the memory allocation system, which will better track OS-committed memory and provide an improved visualization of sub-allocations. Progress was also made on removing the remaining map and write discard calls in the renderer in prep for the new Vulkan backend. They also reworked the game launcher code structure to reduce code duplications and enable Linux-based headless clients, which will help with automated testing. Core Engine also worked alongside the physics and vehicle teams in support of the MISC Hull C, ensuring it works correctly, and they fixed bugs with the ship's unique systems. Additionally, they fixed further fallout from the last integration and made various other bug fixes and optimizations. And for the physics team, they continued to help the game teams fix various physics-related bugs in the game code. So happy to hear that they are taking these physics bugs, fixing them up, as that is definitely important in a physicalized, persisting world. Now they also updated the cloth and maelstrom system and began improving active and animated ragdolls. And this maelstrom system, as we know, is the physical damage system, which is getting much closer to completion, and shows its work completes midway through August. However, this system has been extended a few times, so fingers crossed that is it now, and I hope to see the system in action at this year's CitizenCon. Finally, for the engine team, they provided bug fixes for the recently enabled async editor loading, and are currently adding more safety checks for correct entity access. So a lot of work going on from the engine team. Much of it I have no idea what it means, but building a solid foundation for a game like Star Citizen, for any game really, is of course very important. Now moving on to the in-game branding team, they continued to build various assets for an upcoming event and worked alongside location teams on navigational signage for New Babbage. They did say they are planning to update all of the current locations with the new player experience, just to help new players wherever they choose to spawn at or to start at. They also began their work on the underground facilities, working on different mockups for commercial lobbies. These are the new underground facilities. And finally, progress was made on the final touch-ups for Pyro. For the Interactables team, they closed out and polished work on Pyro's consumables and shop and prop content. The lighting team polished and cleaned up various locations around Pyro and worked on the system's gas clouds, and back in Stanton, they progressed with their tasks for the new Crusader platforms. For the EU locations team, they continued work on Pyro's rundown stations with a focus on completing polish tasks, and I believe these are referring to stations that will offer various resources like refueling, rearming, repairing, but in a more limited capacity than Stanton, also looking less maintained due to the nature of the Pyro system. The team improved signage around New Babbage, improving and bug fixing the new Crusader platforms, and worked with the mission features team on new content, and these new platforms are expected now to come with a 320.x patch, no longer the 320 patch. The Sandbox team progressed with outposts for Pyro and continued their extensive work on the updated UGFs, so underground facilities, so referring to the newly rebuilt Rastar underground facilities. Also, I am looking forward to seeing what outposts will be present in Pyro, as a couple of years ago they said that they intend on bringing around 50 outposts ranging from residents, gangs, traders, farmers and so on, dotted around the Pyro system. Now I do suspect that number has increased, but also includes many other location types, like the scrapyards and settlements and more. Finally, improvements were made to Pyro's planet, and new technology for clouds was looked into. Now this sounds pretty interesting. They are currently doing a lot of R&D into creating realistic clouds, like we will hear soon. These are for planets like Earth, but also for alien worlds, as they need to create something unique there, not to mention weather systems. So new technology for clouds could see clouds in the verse become even better than what we have seen in any other game. For the Montreal locations team, they progressed with additional derelict settlements, which says past Greybox before moving into the final stage. Now these we heard during an Inside Star Citizen are expected for the Alpha 320 build, and will be locations for NPCs to live. So hopefully this is still on the cards for 320. We haven't heard anything about them since, but there will be some very cool locations for the verse. The team also progressed with the new underground facilities, and once that work is done, they will then return to the ongoing building interior mandate, and this interior mandate is fleshing out the interior spaces inside the buildings at landing zones, bringing all manner of new locations, including player hubs. Now, for the narrative team, they continue to work with various design teams to push development on Pyro, specifically focusing on mission content, local mission providers, like establishing the tone and voice of how missions will be presented, and examining how the overall mission system will change when the new system is added, with the team saying it has led to some interesting discussions about missions that cross over from Stanton to Pyro, and vice versa. So some great work going on there, and in regards to missions crossing borders, these will heavily play into the economy, with import and export driving much of the profit opportunities available, as we already see with the new mining updates, where some resources are worth more depending on where you are, further away from their source. Now the team also supported the Misk Hull C by implementing the latest version of the ATC behaviour that will allow players to request a landing spot to load and offload their cargo, which they say also led to resurrecting work on the overarching air traffic controller behaviour, with some potentially exciting updates that will be discussed in the near future. But I am not sure what these potentially exciting updates are, nothing comes to mind, I'm afraid. The narrative team has also expanded to include 2 new dedicated narrative designers who will be bridging the gaps between narrative design and AI. They will be looking at all NPCs, from mission givers to population characters, and refine their behaviours to make them feel more alive and establish the tone and flavour of the game's various locations. For example, to make the people of Hurston feel distinct from the people of Orison. Now this attention to detail is what I love about CIG. They really do go to a lot of effort to build a living, breathing world. Being able to identify an NPC's home location through visuals or accent, that kind of thing, will be a very nice touch. For the Montreal Online Services team, they spent time refining the new Inventory ID feature and addressing issues that came up during the formal QA testing pass. Time was also spent working on a plan to refactor several of the backend services to gRPC, as well as modernise them with new features, plus they researched easy anti-cheat sanctions and enforcement. For the research and development team, further updates were made to atmosphere and volumetric cloud rendering. Guided sampling used in the Cloud Ray Marcher was updated based on last month's improvements to transmittance profiles, with the profiles themselves receiving additional filtering to reduce occasional block artifacting. The temporal render mode, currently in development for atmosphere and volumetric clouds, was switched to a low discrepancy based sequence of sample offsets that are used to set up rays and ray matching over time. And finally, they have made improvements to cloud shadow maps that considerably improves performance and render quality. Now I'm not sure what most of that means, but ultimately getting the best looking clouds, realistic atmospheres for all the planets and moons, both Earth-like and alien, is going to make such a difference when it comes to travelling around the verse, especially when things like weather comes in, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can come up with, but I don't think they're quite at the point of showing this off yet. Now the UI team made improvements to the data heist screen, plus worked on a style variant for screens found throughout Pyro. They also developed a new internal map system to help players navigate places like cities, planets and capital ships, obviously very important. And last but not least, we have the visual effects team, who continue to work on the interiors and exteriors of several Pyro locations, with the team saying the visual style of these locations differs greatly from many Stanton-based areas, which has become a welcome challenge for the VFX artists, both technically and artistically. And finally, they completed their visual effects pass on a size 5 bomb, plus 3 upcoming new vehicles. Do wonder what they will be. So there you have it, that was this month's Persistent Universe Monthly Report. Some great progress, as always, getting made. In regards to the ship art team, I have covered all of their work in a dedicated video, which I will link below, as there was plenty of ship updates this month, and this includes the RSI Polaris, the Origin X1, the Apoa Santokiai, Tumbril Storm, Crusader A1 and C1, plus a lot of unannounced ships and vehicles as well. Again, that video is linked in the description below. I highly suggest checking it out if ships are your thing. But with that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing. Come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome. Always a great laugh over there with you lot. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.